Mara Lopez had always been the kind of person who put others first. At 29, she worked double shifts as a caregiver in a small-town nursing home, earning just enough to cover rent and her little brother's school fees. She had no degree, no fancy car, and no time for luxuries. But she had something that many others didn't: heart. She didn't just take care of her patients, she loved them. She'd braid Miss Hilda's hair every Friday morning and sneak in an extra pudding for Mr. Banks, who said the cafeteria food tasted like paper. The staff loved her. The patients adored her. But Mara, she felt invisible outside those walls. She lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint, the kind of place where the heater coughed more than it worked. Her phone screen was cracked, her shoes were worn thin, and she hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years. But none of that mattered to her. What mattered was showing up. Every day. Rain or shine. Even on the day that would change her life forever. That day started like any other. A gray sky, a drizzle in the air, and a tired Mara driving home after a 16-hour shift. Her eyes were heavy. Her stomach was growling. And all she could think about was heating up leftover rice and falling into bed. But fate had other plans. Just 2 blocks from her apartment, Mara's headlights caught something unusual. A car, sleek, silver, expensive-looking, was twisted at an odd angle by the curb. The front bumper was smashed, steam hissing from the hood. And slumped behind the wheel was a man, motionless. Mara's instincts kicked in instantly. She slammed her car into park, threw on her hazard lights, and dashed into the rain. "Sir! Sir, can you hear me?" she called, tapping on the window. No response. She pulled on the door handle, locked. Without hesitating, she used her elbow to bang on the glass harder. Finally, the man inside stirred. He looked up, dazed. Blood trickled from a gash above his brow. Mara's heart pounded. "I'm going to help you, okay? Just stay with me." Luckily, the passenger side was unlocked. She crawled in, checking his pulse, guiding his head upright. "You've been in a crash," she said softly, wrapping her scarf around his forehead. "You're bleeding, but it's not deep. Can you tell me your name?" The man blinked, confused. "It's Leo." That was all he managed before his eyes fluttered closed again. Within minutes, Mara had called for an ambulance, stayed with him through the downpour, and used her coat to keep him warm. She didn't know who he was. Didn't ask about the car. Didn't snap a picture or record a video. She just stayed. And when the paramedics arrived and loaded him into the ambulance, she quietly walked back to her beat-up car, soaking wet, and drove home. She thought that was the end of it. But it was only the beginning. The next morning, Mara showed up at work with soaked shoes and a sore throat. Her boss, Mrs. Delgado, raised an eyebrow the moment she walked in. "You look like you wrestled with the sky last night." Mara forced a smile. Something like that. She didn't explain. She never did. It wasn't her nature to draw attention or ask for praise. But something strange happened around lunchtime. The local news was on the break room TV, low volume, closed captions. And that's when Mara's world stopped. There he was, the man from the crash, now clean, bandaged, and stepping out of a hospital room with a police escort and a wall of reporters swarming him. But it wasn't just the image that stunned her. It was the name in the headline. Tech billionaire Leo Vance injured in late-night crash. Private life thrust into spotlight. Mara nearly dropped her coffee. Leo Vance, founder of Valion, the reclusive genius who built an empire in artificial intelligence and vanished from the public eye years ago. People barely knew what he looked like anymore. But she had seen him up close. She had helped him, not knowing he was worth billions, not knowing his face was splashed on news sites and business magazines around the world. And now, the entire world knew he'd been in a crash. But no one mentioned who found him. No one mentioned the woman who wrapped her scarf around his head or called for help in the middle of the night. Mara shook her head, confused. She didn't want recognition. But something about it didn't sit right. It felt unfinished. She didn't know that, while she sat watching the screen in stunned silence, Leo was already looking for her. He just didn't have a name. Yet. Leo Vance was not the kind of man who let things go. Even as the nurses changed his for and the press begged for interviews outside the hospital doors, his mind was on her. The woman in the rain. The stranger who had saved him when no one else had. No cameras. No entourage. Just her, kneeling beside him with a trembling voice and warm hands that didn't hesitate. And he couldn't get her out of his head. "Mr. Vance," his assistant Carter said, stepping into the room. "You need rest. Your company can handle the media. The doctors." Leo interrupted. "I need to find her." Carter paused. "Who?" "The woman who found me. The one who called 911. She left before anyone arrived. We've got no ID. No statement from the scene. No footage. No name." Leo leaned forward, wincing. "Then we get creative." He had the resources of an empire behind him. Within hours, he authorized a quiet but thorough search, traffic camera views, 911 audio requests, and calls to local clinics and shelters, just in case she had gone to dry off or treat herself afterward. Meanwhile, across town, Mara returned to her routine, unaware of the quiet storm she had set in motion. She stocked bandages. She fed patients. She tucked a blanket around a lonely grandmother who had no visitors. But a flicker of curiosity had started in her. Every time the news played Leo Vance's name, her stomach flipped. What if someone had seen her? What if someone reached out? Then, one evening, she found a strange man waiting by the front of the hospital where she worked. Carter. He was holding an umbrella, and her name on a note card. "Are you Mara Jensen?" he asked gently. Mara's heart skipped. "Yes." He smiled. "Mr. Vance would like to thank you. Personally." Mara didn't know what to expect. She hadn't even changed out of her nurse scrubs when Carter picked her up in a sleek black car. The seats were warmer than anything she'd ever sat on. The scent inside wasn't perfume. It was money, polished leather, and power. Still, she felt awkward. Out of place. She wasn't the kind of woman to be chauffeured around the city. "Is this really necessary?" she asked quietly, glancing at Carter. He smiled. "You saved his life. Mr. Vance doesn't forget things like that." When they pulled up to the penthouse, yes, the penthouse, she hesitated before stepping out. Towering windows, a doorman who nodded respectfully at her, and a view of the skyline that made her breath catch. Leo Vance was waiting inside, dressed in jeans and a white shirt, his arm in a sling. He stood up the moment she entered, as if she were royalty. "Mara," he said, eyes soft. "I was starting to think you were just a dream." Her cheeks flushed. "You remember me? I remember your hands shaking while you held my head off the pavement. I remember your voice telling me to hold on. I remember the rain and the fear in your eyes. And that you didn't leave." She looked away. Anyone would have done the same. "No," he said firmly. "Most people didn't. You did." There was silence between them, not awkward, but full, like air before a storm. Like two lives that had brushed once, and weren't done colliding yet. He poured her tea, not wine. She liked that. He asked about her life, not her job. She liked that too. She learned that Leo Vance wasn't the cold billionaire the tabloids painted him to be. He was kind, quiet, and lonely. "I've had everything," he said, staring out the window, "except for someone who saw me without the title." She hesitated. "You think I saw you?" He turned to her. "You didn't even know my name. And you stayed." The tea grew cold. The city lights flickered below. And for the first time in years, Mara felt something she hadn't felt since her mother died. Seen. Wanted. Safe. The next morning, Mara returned to her regular life. The tiny apartment with the leaky kitchen tap. The long bus ride to the hospital. The beeping machines. The groggy patients. The endless rounds. But her heart. It wasn't where it used to be. She found herself smiling for no reason, pausing at red lights just a moment longer, hoping, stupidly, to see his car glide past. It had only been one night. A few hours. But it had stirred something in her that refused to settle. Then came the envelope. It was waiting in her locker, thick, elegant, sealed with gold wax. No note, no sender, just her name. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Mara, I tried to find the right words, but nothing seemed enough. You saved me, and I'd like to save something too, your dreams. There's a check inside this envelope. Please don't see it as charity. See it as gratitude. Use it for whatever your heart's been too tired to ask for. Leo. She stared at the paper like it had burned her. A check for $250,000. Her knees almost gave out. She clutched the locker for balance. Around her, nurses laughed, a cart squeaked, someone called for help on the intercom. But her world had just tilted. She didn't cash the check. She didn't tear it up either. Instead, she folded it carefully, placed it in her back pocket, and walked straight into the hospital chapel. God, she whispered, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is a test or a blessing or both. But please, don't let me lose myself. She worked the rest of her shift like nothing happened. But inside, everything had changed. And that night, when Leo texted her, asking, dinner again? My place. She replied, only if there's tea. They started seeing each other more. Sometimes at his house, tucked away in the hills where no cameras could find them. Sometimes in her cramped apartment, where the scent of onions and rice lingered and the only luxury was silence. He would bring her flowers, always different. She never told him which were her favorite. He somehow knew. Mara, in turn, made tea that he swore tasted better than anything money could buy. Their worlds blended slowly, quietly, until one day, the world noticed. It started with a blurry photo. Them leaving a bookstore. Her laughing, his arm around her. At first, it was posted on a tiny celebrity gossip forum. A few comments. Then more. Is that Leo Hart with a nurse? Who is she? She looks so normal. By the end of the week, it was on every major gossip site. Billionaire CEO spotted with unknown woman. Mystery girl revealed to be nurse. Reporters swarmed her hospital the next day. She tried to ignore them, but they waited at the entrance, snapping pictures, shouting questions. Are you two dating? Did he buy you that necklace? How did you meet? Her supervisor pulled her aside, face tight. Mara, this can't continue. Patients are feeling uncomfortable. Staff are distracted. You're going viral for the wrong reasons. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. Instead, she nodded. Then she texted Leo. We need to talk. That evening, he showed up at her door without security. Just him, hoodie pulled low, eyes shadowed with worry. I'm so sorry, he said before she could even speak. I should have protected you better. It's not your fault, she replied. But I can't live like this. I worked so hard to get here, and now it feels like I'm losing everything. He took a deep breath, then said something she didn't expect. What if you didn't have to work at that hospital anymore? She blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying, he said softly, come with me, anywhere. We'll disappear for a while. Let this die down. Her heart beat loud in her ears. It sounded like a fairy tale. But Mara wasn't a princess. She was a woman who fought tooth and nail to stand on her own. I need time, she whispered. I'll wait, he replied. And he did. But the world didn't. The next headline dropped 2 days later. Nurse lover once mocked CEO on social media. A tweet from years ago had surfaced. One she didn't even remember writing. Something sarcastic about billionaires and private jets during a nursing strike. She stared at her phone in disbelief. It wasn't even that bad, but the way they spun it, twisted it. Her inbox exploded. Hate mail. Threats. Offers to sell her story. She shut off her phone and cried for the first time in weeks. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, the hospital suspended her. No investigation. No meeting. Just a cold, typed email. Leo showed up at her place that night and found her curled up on the couch, blanket over her head. He didn't speak. He just sat down beside her, pulled her close and whispered, Let them talk. Let them judge. You stood by me when I was a name with no face. Now I'll stand by you when you're a face in every headline." She didn't say anything. She just cried into his chest, not because she was weak, but because she was finally being held by someone strong. Weeks passed. The headlines faded, but the consequences remained. Mara was still suspended. Her reputation at the hospital, once spotless, now carried a whisper wherever she walked. Leo offered to fly her anywhere in the world. Paris, Santorini, Kyoto, she could choose. "Let's start over," he'd say. "Let me take care of you." But that's not what she wanted. She didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to be respected. And Leo understood that, even if it tore him apart watching her suffer quietly. He gave her space. She needed to find herself again before she could truly be with him. So, she went back to the basics. Volunteering at a free clinic downtown. Long hours. No pay. But the patients didn't care who she dated. They only cared that she listened, and that she helped. And for the first time since the chaos, Mara felt peace. One rainy afternoon, as she bandaged a child's scraped elbow, a voice behind her said, "So this is where you've been hiding." She turned. Leo, drenched from the rain, holding a tiny bouquet of wildflowers and a paper cup of tea. "You remembered my tea," she whispered. "I remember everything," he replied. They sat on the clinic's old metal bench as the rain poured around them. "I miss you," he said. "But more than that, I admire you." "I'm still finding my footing," she admitted. "Then let me wait beside you while you do," he said. "No pressure. No cameras. Just me. Just us." She looked at him, soaked, quiet, sincere, and saw not the billionaire. Not the man from the headlines. Just Leo. The man she helped when he was hurting. The man who never forgot. She nodded. "Okay," she whispered. And just like that, they started again. This time with no grand declarations. No dramatic headlines. Just two people sitting on a bench in the rain. Healing. Together. 3 months later, the clinic was bustling. It had become a second home for Mara. Her confidence was back. Not the loud kind, but the steady kind. The kind that came from serving others quietly, without applause. She smiled more now, even on the hard days. Leo kept his word. He didn't interfere. He didn't try to fix her life. He just showed up. Sometimes with coffee. Sometimes with silence. But always with consistency. And slowly, without either of them saying it, they became something real. One Saturday morning, as she arrived at the clinic, she noticed something odd. The parking lot was unusually full. Balloons on the gate. A new signboard being installed. She frowned. Inside, the waiting room was filled with familiar faces. Patients, volunteers, even some of the doctors she hadn't seen in months. Confused, she turned around. And there he was. Leo. In a crisp shirt, no cameras, just calm in his eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, cautiously. He smiled. "You always wanted to help people without the red tape," he said softly. "So I bought the building." Her heart skipped. "You what?" "I bought the whole block. And renamed the clinic." He pointed toward the door. She turned. A gleaming sign hung above the front desk. The Mara Foundation. Free health for all. She gasped. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This is too much. I didn't ask for this." "I know," Leo said. "But you earned it. Every patient you held, every shift you worked when no one was watching, you earned this. This isn't charity. This is respect." Tears welled in her eyes. For so long, she'd struggled with her worth. With the idea that love had to come with conditions, that recognition had to be bought or fought for. But Leo, he didn't love her for headlines. He loved her for her. The way she showed up for people. The way she healed with her hands, not with words. As the applause erupted around her, Mara stood frozen. Then, Leo stepped closer and whispered, "There's one more thing." From his pocket, he pulled out a small, worn envelope. "I kept this since the accident," he said. "It was in my coat the day you found me. I never opened it." She looked at him. "Why not?" "Because it was the letter from my lawyer, finalizing the sale of my company. I thought I was done, burned out, ready to disappear. And now?" she asked. "Now I know," he said, smiling. "That crash didn't end my life. It brought me to it." He reached for her hand. "I don't want to disappear anymore. I want to build something. With you." And just like that, without cameras, without press, without the world watching, she nodded. Not because he was rich, not because he was famous, but because she had found in him the one thing she'd never expected. A partner who saw her, truly saw her. And in that quiet clinic, surrounded by the very people she lived to serve, Mara finally stepped into the life she never thought she'd deserve. Sometimes the people who change your life don't arrive with fanfare. They show up in broken moments, in silence, in need. Just like you. Mara gave everything when she had nothing, and it led her to everything she truly needed. Healing, purpose, and love that had no price tag. So if this story touched you, if it reminded you that kindness still counts, that miracles come dressed in ordinary, don't scroll away just yet. Subscribe to SoulTwist Stories for more true-to-heart tales that will make you cry, smile, and believe again. And tell us in the comments, have you ever helped a stranger, or has one ever changed your life? We'd love to hear your story.